Welcome everybody back to the DomCast episode 8, and also welcome to the first episode of 2022. The first, well, technically not the first YouTube video I'll post or have posted in 22 because VOD 2K is getting blitzed right now. So if you didn't know and you keep up with the VODs, that is happening. But I appreciate you if you're still around. Appreciate you if you are still supporting. Those of you who are listening on Spotify, I see you because y'all are rating the show. Because they had the bright idea to make it easy to rate the show. The more the weeks pass, the more I'm just lost for words that they didn't always have that big star right there that you could just press and rate. That's crazy. Anyways, I appreciate y'all for doing that. Appreciate y'all for hitting the like button and all the good stuff to support the show if that is your thing. And we are here. It's like, on one hand, it kind of felt like we're gaining some ground with the league and getting it back to a recognizable space, because if you hadn't heard, the protocols, well, in the NBA and in real life and outside life, have been significantly shortened. Yeah, we found out that you actually only need to isolate for 5 days if you get attacked by Unicron. So that means NBA players go down, they really only miss 1 or 2 games and then they're back. And so guys that you would think it's going to put a big dent in their record for them not being there, they just pop right back up. It's just guys are just in and out, in and out. As I say that, I believe Woj just reported Karis LeVert and 2 other Pacer players just went in. Just a damn shame, because Karis has been he's been getting his trade value up lately. But with these new rules and these hey man, whatever. I'm not about to go into CDC memes right now. As always, what I'm about to tell y'all, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Podcasts, it's on YouTube. That's probably where most of y'all are watching it. But if you ain't paid for YouTube Premium, which no sponsor, I suggest that you do. But if you don't, you can listen to it there. Close your phone, turn it face down. It can be easy for you. Well, we are going to actually start by discussing the All-Star starters, the probable All-Star starters, because that's coming up, man. That is coming up. That one hit me in the face because the calendar turned and I'm like, well, shit, actually, All-Star Weekend is next month. January is gonna get up out of here just like every other month has recently. And a lot of us are gonna be going to Cleveland. Cleveland, that's the All-Star destination that's been chosen. I think that's fitting for 2020 Part 3. I may or may not be there. Who knows? Who knows where the pandemic will be by that point in terms of how the NBA handles it. But anyways, that got me interested. I started seeing people tweet out their NBA All-Star hashtags, started seeing the graphics. So I was like, let me make one. And this is only for starters. So I'm only doing starters. I'm only talking about starters right now. I'm copping out. I don't want the headache of going through the whole roster. And plus, that'll probably take way longer than it should. So look at some starters, then look at some topics. But this is fun because let's start with the West. You think these are going to be straightforward, and then you get to some positions where you could definitely have more than one choice. Well, Steph Curry's going to be an All-Star starter regardless. That's just, I don't really need to discuss that. You can tell me statistically he's not having his strongest year and be baffled as to why he's either at the top of the MVP race or second. And then I'll also be like, well, he's playing good Steph Curry defense this year. What does that mean? Good Steph Curry defense, like good defense for Steph. And I think that's something that's probably overlooked. Either way, obviously I've got Steph as an All-Star there. Now the other backcourt spot becomes fun because I don't think the visceral reaction that you get to maybe having a Donovan Mitchell there is fair. Now I would also say it is 100% fair to go, well, Devin Booker deserves that spot. Because before the and even after the hamstring, before and after the hamstring, Booker's been cooking. That's Devin Cooker. He's been that way for pretty much the calendar year of 2021. They did miss just under a month, which could possibly throw some salt on his case. But then it's like, well, the Suns are, depending on what day you look, first or second in the West. He's played a big part of that. I would go on to say he's their best player. That's how I feel. So I actually understand if you have Devin Booker there and not a Donovan Mitchell. I don't understand the throw up reaction to having Mitchell there though. I get it. It's not even worth me saying if you pay attention to the Jazz, because you don't. So on one hand, I get it. People are bored of regular season Jazz, but he's been having a good year on a team that has been right outside of Phoenix and Golden State pretty much at this point the whole year. And I even started looking because I kind of wanted to, not even on some troll tip, I really did want to highlight some of his passing this year. So I went on YouTube, typed in Donovan Mitchell passing highlights, and I realized the most recent one, I think, was from 11 months ago. There's no Donovan Mitchell passing highlights from this season. And when I watched him play, he makes, I would venture to say, better passes than he has in his career. You won't really recognize it from the assists. He's averaging the same number of assists, but way he'll draw a defense and kick a pass to the corner or even into the paint. And not just a regular one, like a nice, I'm going up with a shot, then I'm going to turn in midair and slip it to the side of the help type passes. I don't know. I noticed that a couple of times on YouTube this week. I couldn't find Donovan Mitchell passing highlights. I could not find Herb Jones defensive highlights. If you're not aware of who that is actually a very, very solid rookie for the New Orleans Pelicans, and especially defensively. And I kind of wanted to play around with that on Twitter, and I didn't get one Herb Jones defensive highlight on YouTube. It doesn't exist. So anyways, yeah, I like what Mitchell is done, but once again, this is about how long do we have before voting closes? There's gonna be more games that happen by then. I would not be surprised to see Devin Booker get that spot, but I would also say, like, damn, I didn't expect people to be like, Donovan Mitchell. Like, Donovan Mitchell is nice with it. Anyways, when you get to the front court, obviously Jokic. I was about to say, well, okay, first of all, obviously LeBron. LeBron is going to be an all-star starter. That's going to happen. Oh, yeah, we have more Braun talk later, so I'm going to kind of save it. I do have Braun there. Even though he missed a decent amount of time, he hasn't missed a beat. So you could say how many ever games he's missed and he's been hurt, whatever. But he is, when he's on the court, he is LeBron James. And you have the age factor with it as well. What did he just turn? 37, 38, whatever it is he just turned. He's performing at a level that nobody that age has ever performed at, and probably will ever. Well, I don't know. I can't say that with sports medicine. But yeah, shit's incredible. It's an all-star starter. And then that last spot. Also, I did not expect Rudy Gobert to get laughed off the ballot. I have Rudy Gobert there. Now, disclaimer. I do not want to watch Rudy Gobert in an all-star game. I don't want to watch Draymond Green in an all-star game. I'm just going by what, like, I've kind of built a well, not kind of. I've been watching these guys. If I miss their game, I go back and check what they did on tape the night before. So I've really kind of built a profile throughout this season, a very solid profile of these guys throughout the season. Rudy Gobert cannot be laughed off of an all-star ballot. And if I was just doing a ballot off of who I think is deserving, I would have him there. But I don't want to see him there. I would rather see a Cat there. Obviously, I'd rather see a Cat. I want the shooting. I want the flashy post moves and maybe a poster or two. Yeah, I'd rather have Cat. And I could even maybe see, this is where it's interesting, right? This is where it's interesting, because people will at the Donovan Mitchell spot go, oh well, Booker, he's got a higher seed than Donovan Mitchell, and he's playing great basketball. And so that's like the crux of the reason that I'm going to give him the spot over Mitchell. That's a very basic argument for it. On the other hand, if you go down to Gobert and you got people that want Cat over him, well, the Minnesota Timberwolves are where? Probably bottom of the Western Conference. I'm just going to, without even looking, say play in. But they will not consider that at all. And putting him over Gobert, not even, they won't. And the thing is, let me see if, yeah, no, he is. I know off the top of my head that Rudy is actually on the MVP ladder. He ain't gonna win it, but he's on the MVP ladder though too. It's kind of, you see where it gets kind of murky. So again, I understand. I don't want to see him starting either. I don't want to see him setting screens and protecting the rim in an all-star game. That's just not, there's more exciting things you can have there. But also laughing him off a ballot like he just hasn't had a great season is kind of interesting to me. Anyways, there'll be more Rudy Gobert talk later, because the Warriors and Jazz, I just had some fascinating notes on what happened there last night. So my official ballot came out to Curry, Mitchell, Jokic, James, Gobert. If you give me Curry, Booker, Jokic, James, and Cat, I will actually probably like that more, to be honest. Visually, and for an all-star game, that's the one I would probably want. And yeah, you can convince me of Booker over Mitchell, but you cannot laugh at Donovan Mitchell, I don't think. Anyways, that's the West. I think it's more or less straightforward. I sense that maybe there'll be arguments about LeBron James and how much he's played, but look, man, just like I'm gonna say later on in this podcast, don't waste your breath arguing something for LeBron all season. Don't waste your breath arguing against LeBron on this one, fam. It's just the way he's done even over the last 2 weeks will get him into this All-Star game. It's been absurd. LeCenter is upon us, and I love it. The Eastern Conference. Ooh, boy. Oh, boy. You are in the backcourt. Demar Derozan, let's just go ahead and put it. He's there in pin. He's there in stone. DeMar DeRozan is there in stone. Also, we'll be speaking of him later. We'll be speaking of pretty much all these guys later, which is funny because looking at my segment here. Okay. All right. So this is what we're doing today. Yeah. DeRozan. Trae Young. We'll talk about it. Then you get to the front court, obviously KD, obviously Giannis, obviously Embiid, to be honest. I really think the only one that you can contest in the East would be Trae Young. And I think you would contest it in talking about a Zach LaVine. LaVine and DeRozan have been great. They've probably, they have an argument, obviously, as the best duo. Definitely the most entertaining duo. But Trae Young has had a hell of a season for himself, too, that is very much going to fly under the radar because the Hawks, at the present day, they honestly, there's some games they played this week where they shouldn't have been playing. Trae Young was not trying to be funny. He was not trying to be a dick when he said he went into practice and didn't know most of his teammates. So there's that. They've had injuries even before that, with DeAndre Hunter going down. And starting this season, they were not healthy. It's clearly affecting their defense, as it would for anybody. When you have injuries and then you have weeks where randoms are playing, that's just things are going to be all over the place. So the Hawks are at a point where, as a team, they probably won't be reaching the expectations that were set by last year's playoff run. It would have to go full speed in the other direction pretty quickly. Either way, Trae Young for most of the season has been having his best season. He started off shooting the 3-ball better than he had. This is not his best scoring season because, wow, that is insane. Did y'all realize in his second year he was almost seriously? Good God. First of all, looking at 2020 and seeing that already be 2 seasons ago is kind of wild, but I did not realize in his second year he was already damn near averaging 30 points. He went up a whole 10 points per game. I just hadn't really ever looked at it. But yes, he is still shooting a career high from the 3 mark right now. He's career high in field goal percentage. He is career high in, well, he's almost career high in effective field goal percentage. It's tied. And again, he's doing this in a year where it's like a revolving door for his roster right now. So it's visually and statistically a very impressive season. And once again, I will not accept Trae Young, just like I'm not looking to entertain Donovan Mitchell or Rudy Gobert erasure. I'm not looking to entertain Trae Young erasure. However, you can very much, and I won't even be mad at you if you have Zach LaVine there. You say he's been great. He's probably having his best season, if not one of his best seasons. And they were playing winning basketball too. They're way higher in the standings. Yeah, I won't be mad, and I won't be mad if it's LaVine and DeRozan in the All-Star game. I want to see that stuff. That's why the All-Star talk, if you'll notice throughout the years, I don't get heated about it. I don't go hard for it, because at the end of the day, well, first, it's just an All-Star game, and second, yeah, you can interchange a lot of these guys and still get entertainment out of it. So, and especially with the starters, take for instance the West. If Gobert ends up starting, I'm pretty sure we'll probably see a lot of Cat still. It's not like Gobert is just gonna take up the entire game or something like that. So I don't feel that strongly over it. So yeah, if you want to replace Trae, but also I will point out that whole LaVine thing is kind of the same thing I was talking about in the West. LaVine, great season, and his team is winning, and so you'll say, okay, put Trae away, who's also having a great season, but his team just isn't in a good space. It's like the same thing I was just talking about for Gobert. He don't get that grace. Gobert's having a great season. His team is near the top of the standings, but they'd be like, yeah, fuck off, we want Cat. despite the Wolves being where they always are. Which, by the way, do want to obviously point out it's not necessarily their fault. I think they could have been better this year, minus COVID, minus injury. But the injury, at least injury, seems like it's always a thing in Minnesota, regardless. Yeah, the rest of the East starters, though, what are you even talking about? KD and Giannis, Stone. Hell, Embiid, Stone. He's carried a massive... I don't know, I just feel strange about saying massive load. That's where I was going with that. He's had a massive burden to carry for Philly this season. He's carried it. When he goes against teams who don't have a center for the night or whatever, he does exactly excuse me, he does exactly what he's supposed to do. Like when they played the Celtics and they had Cantor guarding them, we didn't have a center that night. So that was Embiid's, what he had, how many 40-point games has he got? Or close to 40-point games? So yeah, that's the East and West to me. I guess maybe next week I'll discuss some of the reserves, or as we get closer, maybe like the week before, because I'm gonna guess off the top of my head we are not at a week before right now. Either way, let me know y'all ballots, y'all starters, because I don't think it'll deviate that much either way. In the East, once again, I think Trae Young is only contest, and in the West, I see a lot of Jazz erasure, so there's some you can play with some lineups there. But yeah, that's what I've got. All-star voting is always fun. Cleveland is not. The Cavaliers are fun, but Cleveland is not. But if I end up there next month, I'll happily go. The hotels are always nice. And traveling is just fun, so I'll do it. But you ain't sending me you're not sending me to Wyoming for any reason, though. Next up, let's talk about how James Harden... I don't want to start relating that to all-star stuff yet because I have to spruce up on some of the names, so I'm not going to make any all-star jabs. But Harden is actually playing great basketball. Health and safety protocol Harden is basically the Harden that we all know and love. He's getting that burst of speed back, the sidestep / back step. Was that step back? Sidestep. Why did I say back step? No, step back. Got the step back going, getting to the free throw line, shot 15 of them last night, if I can remember correctly. And he has actually scored 30 or more points in every game since he returned. He's obviously, like we discussed last week, his playmaking never left. He's also had 10 or more assists in every single game. Hell, he has nearly had a triple-double in every game. It was only one. He missed it a couple of days ago by, it looks, 2 rebounds, I guess. So... you always know the magic thing is, oh, what are the teams? Well, they're not terrible teams. So even though we had the part earlier in the season where the question is, where is Harden against good teams? Okay, Clippers without Paul is not really great. I wouldn't venture to call them terrible though, and they won last night. What the hell? Philly obviously is not terrible, and Lakers. Versus their expectations, yeah, I would say terrible, but even they've kind of gotten it together a little bit. Either way, Harden just take away the old talking points that we've been going through. He's looked good. He's looked good physically. He's getting his legs under him, which is when we were talking about him maybe in week 4 or 5. This is what I've been waiting on for a while now. Of course, the calendar changes. I started to wonder, is it actually going to happen? Is it coming? Because then you start questioning his contract next season and how far they can go. But a lot has changed. Kyrie is back now. Hasn't played yet, but he's back. And that's what makes this even bigger, because you're about to get Kyrie allegedly in 50% of the games. And so that's going to give him even more cushion to be this again, because he's been this before. That changes things quite a bit. I am going to keep an eye out for when the Nets play their first contending team. And even then, who knows, because the way things are right now, that contending team probably ain't gonna have everybody. Either way, this is good to see. In the first game against the Clippers, where they played, that was a couple of days ago. That one was actually in LA. Those were the playmaking chops that were present in Houston, really. And again, that hasn't disappeared, but it was just fun to watch the Clippers blitz him on so many plays and him just do the same exact thing. So you have Zubac and whoever else come up to the 3-point line, and he just split a pass right down the middle of them, and the offense does what it does at that point. It's going to get fun. I will say that, just because Kyrie's coming back, at least it doesn't totally ruin everything. Well, excuse me, at this point, everything is kind of more or less ruined, but when you're watching 2 or 3 guys who most people wouldn't know in a game that was supposed to be like a marquee matchup, yeah, I would say that's pretty close to ruin. But either way, yeah, with Kyrie coming back, at least it doesn't ruin it fully. He's not playing full time. But it's going to be fun seeing him in and out of the lineup, and then Harden getting his feet back under him, and then the playoffs to come, and we're wondering by then, what does Kyrie do? Because it starts to matter when you play this Bucks team that has gotten somehow deeper as the season has gone on, and the big three is still barely losing. So either way, happy to see James Harden hooping out. We are going to track it. Hopefully we don't return to the 14 points on like 12% 3-point shooting games we were getting earlier in the season. And more than the numbers, I would say if you haven't been watching Harden, or if you plan to, just look at him physically. That's what is looking better to me. Shot, get more arc on it. I think those are the important things. It's the recovery. It's just weird that it happened after 4 games being out, because I always assumed you would need that ramp up period, and I thought that would take away, like one of the commentators said it, when you miss any amount of games in the middle of an NBA season, it takes away kind of how sharp you are. And Harden came back, it's like it's like a variant of him. His old variant just came back. Strange. So this is going on in Brooklyn. I didn't really have much to discuss about the Clippers and Brooklyn game last night, because it was weird. They were up by 10 plus in the third quarter. The Clippers are running Terrence Mann. You've got Amir Coffey out there. Xavier Moon, who I'm pretty sure is from the G League, is off the bench. There's no PG. And so you assume this is going to turn into a blowout. The Clippers come back and win it by a couple of points. They edge it out. And KD and Harden both had quote-unquote good games. Oh yeah, for Harden, getting to the free throw line is a good game, even if he didn't shoot magnificently, which he technically didn't, but still, though, they both had statistically impressive games. Yeah, that's just a weird loss, but that's what they say in the NBA. Any team could beat a squad on any given night. And the Clippers are just trying to hold serve without Paul George as long as they can. And the West is so bad that, to be honest, and especially with everything still being so in and out, it almost doesn't, not gonna say it doesn't matter, that's not accurate. It almost doesn't feel like there's anything much at stake, because you go and you look at the standings and say the Pelicans are literally a game and a half, I believe, out of the play-in. So you're the Clippers and you're saying we're gonna miss PG for 2 weeks to a month. How far can you really fall in the West? Can you really fall out of contention? Unless who's the one team that's out of contention right now? Is it Houston? I don't know. Or contention for a playoff spot. It's almost like you really cannot fall right now. So yeah, you just got to be decent. You just got to be decent, and you're all right. Never thought we'd be saying this about the Western Conference, but alas. Moving, just hopping over conferences to the East. Boy, speaking of Cleveland, by the way, which we were probably 5 minutes ago, man, you can't have shit in Cleveland. Ricky Rubio tore his ACL, and if I'm not mistaken, it's the same ACL he tore when he was in Minnesota. For those of you who didn't know, you might be a little bit young, there was a point in time, and Rubio has had a nice career, by the way, but when he was drafted, we were looking at him as maybe a star point guard. And there was a span of time around 2012 where he was playing with Kevin Love, and I think they had Nikolai Pekovic, and it was one of those rare times where the Minnesota Timberwolves looked like they could end up being decent pretty soon, like they could turn a corner. And Rubio tore his ACL right around that time. But yes, for a week or two, we were saying, Kevin Love and Rubio, this might be the future. Anyways, Kevin Love is ironic. Yeah, by the way, they were on the Cavs together, and Kevin Love has been playing good lately as well. He's shooting it really well. And it's nice because that's all he needs to do on this roster, where everything else, his old role of trying to be a star or whatever is now being passed on to these young guys. He can just be out there and shoot and then rebound some, and he's been able to add that adequately. Then Rubio tears his ACL, and I kind of hate, because I love the young guys so much on this squad with Garland and then Jared Allen and Mobley. I really hadn't talked about Rubio so much throughout the year. I might have mentioned him, but he, and especially when Sexton went down, he's been so good for this squad and so good for kind of to helping the tempo of their offense, and even playing in lineups with Garland. That's been a great thing for Cleveland that I don't think they're going to be able to replace with this Rondo move. So Rajon Rondo was traded to the Cavaliers for Denzel Valentine. Valentine is not going to play for the Lakers. As fun as it would be with everything going on that's up and down in LA right now, that's not happening. I believe they cut him. So I understand what the Cavaliers wanted to do here. It's kind of just like, this is just their luck. This is literally just Cleveland's luck. This is what happens. Rondo is likely, especially at this age, it's not going to give you what Rubio gives you. He's probably not, even though later in his career he had been improved in shooting, it's not going to give you Rubio's shooting. Hell, he's not even going to give you Rubio's just performances in general. I guess he might. We'll see how well he can fill that role of the veteran point guard with the young guys, which is kind of what Rubio was, except he could provide a lot on the court. I just am not sure. There's going to be some playmaking maybe from Rondo, but I'm interested to see his lineups if they're going to be playing him with Garland at all. Sexton is not coming back this season as far as I know, so that's not something that you have to consider. But yeah, it's just like, if I was a Cavaliers fan, I'd be punching a wall, to put it lightly. I'd be punching a wall, because like, oh cool, yeah, the front office worked quick and they went and got us Rondo. Maybe we'll be all right. The way everything's been going, your young core is still there and they've been playing so well. They will still likely be a fun team. They're gonna win some games. Their winning ways will probably continue to a degree. But I noticed the Sixers beating down their door for that 5th seed right now. I wouldn't be surprised as this drags on. That flip-flops Sixers 5th. You get the Cavaliers 6th and closer to the play-in. That's just what's been happening. They started out, they were at 4th, then you get injuries, you get sicknesses, and then all of a sudden you just get closer and closer to where you kind of might have had Cleveland at the start of the season. But yeah, Rubio, if you didn't know, that's a big blow for them. And that's towards ACL. Let's just say, might as well say it's January. Might as well count from January. I don't even know if he's had his surgery yet. Yeah, when he does come back, it really might be January of next year, or a month or two before, maybe at best. Maybe. Yeah, so that's just a horrible situation all the way around if you're talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers. By the way, Darius Garland, when I do some reserve talk, his name may or may not come up in some all-star talks. And Jared Allen's name would have to come up. Anyways, we will discuss a little. Let's discuss some more. I guess all-star. That's not really an award. Having a spot on the team it's a reward in itself. So look at some of the races, because there has been some flip-flopping. Of course, guys miss stretches of time. Things change. I think that mostly affects the rookie race though, because the MVP race has just kind of been what it's been. And now Giannis is leading it. If you didn't notice, that happened. We were talking about Steph and KD, then there was mentions of Nikola Jokic. Giannis is leading it, and I believe last week I said that would probably end up happening, because you look at the standings, the Bucks 25-13 last time I looked. The only thing I could think was, wow, that's with how many in and outs they've had. That's with the start of the season where Giannis was basically playing by himself. So with all this going on, what would their record be right now if none of that had happened, or at least only a little of it had happened? So they're headed towards a good finish with all this shit that's gone on. You watch them right now, their lineup versatility is just insane because of these discoveries that they've made. We talked about earlier how they've been able to use Grayson Allen, bring in DeMarcus Cousins, give you solid minutes. Bobby Portis has done a great job stretching the floor and being able to be in lineups with Giannis since Brook Lopez is out. But then you go in and you bring in a Jordan Aurora. Or not bring in, he was already there, but he's actually getting minutes now. And Jordan Aurora is fun because you noticed him in the very first game of the season. I can't remember exactly the circumstances that led to it, but he came out and it was it was immediately apparent that he had the confidence that he would be able to contribute, and he has been contributing thus far. So the Bucks have just got, even without having Brook Lopez, probably, I'm gonna guess for the season, just like how I always start to project with Zion, with Lopez, man, at that age with a back surgery, even if he did come back, it's hard to imagine him having an impact, but we'll see. Either way, they are gonna be beating down the wall to first place eventually if they're able to keep this bill of health. And with that, like I said, I did the whole Giannis improve segment weeks ago, probably about 3 weeks ago. Still putting up stupid numbers. You go and you look at what he did the night before, it's always something that's way better than pretty much any stat line that you see anywhere else, and it's just so normal. Also defensively, you saw that on Christmas Day. He saved a game with his defense. As a weak side defender, he is that's like probably the best weak side defender you can have. On both sides of the ball, he's got an argument to be called the best player in the league, but regardless of that argument, yeah, he clearly will end up qualifying for his third MVP with this level of play. And so it's gonna end up being a really close finish between, in my opinion, 3 guys. It'll end up being between Curry, Giannis, and Kevin Durant, depending what happens with the Kyrie Irving situation. I'm waiting to see how that affects it. I really want to see how that's gonna affect it. But yeah, this is where you start, once again, there's the names that come in and you're like, oh, what about Jokic? I went over that already, but now the new one will be, what about LeBron? And that's fun. That is fun, because I feel like we are just living, it's just like Groundhog Day, basically. It's just the exact same thing that was happening in the year 2020, right before the world went to shit. LeBron went on a streak of games, and there you go. Here comes the Twitter post. Here comes Nick Wright. Which, by the way, I don't think is necessarily a bad, well, no, it's not a bad thing. Appreciating LeBron and how great he is. I want many more years of this, because thinking about how much the Lakers remind me of the 2013 Lakers this season has maybe kind of go back and look a little bit about what Kobe was doing that year and how many years he possibly could have kept going if he hadn't gotten hurt, and just keeping my fingers crossed same thing don't happen to LeBron this year. So yeah, I hope he keeps going. It's just, once again, you look at the West, and I just keep going back to knowing how MVP is voted on. Steph did not get it last year. I don't even think he was realistically considered by most people. His name started to come up, and he was just going berserk. But at the end of the day, it was a thing where we knew the Warriors weren't going to get high enough. And also, even if they did, as high as they could get probably was not high enough for him to win it. And so Braun is shaping up to be in that same position. The Lakers right now, the best that they can do, unless there's just some drastic changes, is that 5th spot. That's probably the best that they're going to be able to do the way the season is shaping up. In a different type of season, you might be able to look and say, yeah, okay, a 5th spot with just some insane play from a certain guy might be enough. And a year like this, where you have such a crowded MVP field with so many qualifying characters, that's not going. I just don't think that's going to fly. And all I was saying on Twitter was, I just don't believe people should waste the headache. Basketball discourse is fun sometimes, whatever, but people give themselves headaches with these conversations and then get angry when the guy that they spent all year going to war for doesn't get it. But I never understood that, because you knew they weren't going to get it. And then we have to hear the Rob talk, and I could just kind of feel that coming on right now. But either way, sans all of that, what LeBron is doing is fucking wild. And I saw somebody tweet out that LeBron's age is becoming the new Jason Tatum is 19 meme. But hey, I'm here for it, because when you think about it, sometimes I'm starting to look. And now it sticks out more right now because he's doing it with a new position too. He's playing more and more center. And so it's like, okay, I've seen every arc of his career. I've seen him start out, and when he didn't really have a jump shot, and hit the most empowering thing he could do back then was dunk for a lot of the time. Once it came to the playoffs, it would get a little bit difficult against teams that could have different defensive schemes. It would be harder for him to be efficient. I've gone through all these steps to the Heat days where he became the greatest player easily and he could just do everything, to back to the Cavs days, to these days where it's like, oh, well, he doesn't jump like he used to in 2009, but he technically still can. He just doesn't do it all the time. And then now he's playing fucking center. I've seen so many things. I start to think to myself, man, is he gonna just, is his goal, regardless of winning championships, just to be as great as he can for another 5 years so you can't say anything? I'm sure it's probably burning him to get at least one. Well, it's probably burning him to tie Jordan in titles. Let's put it that way, for sure. But it's probably burning him to definitely get at least one more. But on top of that, though, it does become a thing where you're like, okay, if he can do these things and just keep doing it for who knows how long, and every year you have to start looking and say, who could ever do this? Well, I don't know. That's a pretty solid plan in my opinion. Either way, the coach, Frank Vogel, said that LeCenter is actually going to be a thing. It's actually a thing. It's not just something that they pull out because they have to. I believe the direct information that I saw was when Anthony Davis comes back, they might only use AD and Braun as centers. That means you wouldn't see much Dwight Howard and DeAndre Jordan, if any. So what do you get when you have LeCenter, and how's that working? We've discussed this before, but now we're seeing more of it. He even started a game at center against the Memphis Grizzlies, which they ended up losing, but he's had good games pretty much every time. My bad. He didn't start against the Grizzlies. It was a different game. I think it was the Rockets he started, because the Grizzlies got Steven Adams. He didn't start that game there, but you're seeing it more and more. So it gives you these lineups where you can spread the floor, because the Lakers do have, when you can take out that big man like Dwight Howard or DeAndre Jordan, now you can run lineups where everybody can shoot a little, at least when everyone's there. You get that. You get off-ball LeBron, because the floor is spread. He and Westbrook can make some really pretty connections, because Braun will they'll be looking, and Braun can make a quick cut to the rim. You got him if he's deep in the paint. It's not a lot of people that's gonna be able to stop him. You got pick and rolls with him as the roller, which does a lot. Roll gravity for LeBron goes without saying, it's probably pretty high. Drag help in, got shooters. It just does a lot. And one of the arguments that you saw, and even I think Bucket Patrol when he was on here, one of the things he said was, do we really want to be running LeBron at the 5 all the time? Because he's already getting injured more than he used to. He's already missing more games than he used to. And so on the surface, that does seem to make sense, but also when you look at how he actually plays it, depending on the game that you played in, it sometimes seems like you can make an argument that that's less taxing than him having to chase around some young guy, chase around a primary scorer, or chase around somebody who's just going to be running the whole game. When he's at center, he might be able to roam a bit. It's not like, especially in today's NBA, it's not like a lot of guys are just going to be straight posting and pounding and wearing him down that way. It's not like he's guarding prime Dwight Howard. There really isn't one. You wouldn't start him against the Nuggets. You wouldn't need to start him at center to beat the Nuggets, and especially in the shape that they're in right now. So you don't have to worry about LeBron and Jokic. And so it seems, and especially during games, again, there's just going to be opportunities to put him there that can push the Lakers forward. So it is a good thing. It's a good thing for him defensively. It's a great thing offensively. It just opens up so much. I do agree that it would be better if it was a luxury and not like the factor that can potentially save their season. But this is just kind of where things are right now. So I'm glad that Vogel has acknowledged it. I'm excited to see the Lakers get all their guys together and then start just being able to run lineups with that and maximize them, because I want to see them give their best shot. I want to see everybody be able to give their best shot, but specifically the Lakers, because that's where the lightning rod is. So you want to see how that turns out. And also what's happened there, by the way, it's not just LeBron. So Stanley Johnson. Now there is first of all, shout out Stanley, because I'm happy to see him. That's a guy I was paying attention to. I'd already followed him when he was drafted years ago, just because I thought he was going to end up being better. But because of that, I knew his name when he was in the G League. So to see him actually get a legitimate role on a team that needs it. It's cool. But there's a train of thought out there. One can go, hey, we're looking at Lakers fans basically find their happiness in Stanley Johnson today. This is a new level of down bad. You can look at it that way. But you can also look at it at the fact that I think I probably said it last week. These things with championship teams and good teams, sometimes it hinges on such little details and little factors that one player can bring. And Stanley, it's literally just defense and energy, which the Lakers throughout this season have sorely needed. By the way, while we're on that note, because I had finally found the answer, hit up the film guy because it was confusing me. This is an old note. I don't even think it really matters much to talk about. It was the defensive rating, because I felt like the defensive rating had been lying on LA. And I was right, it was. When they were 7th and you would talk about the Lakers defense and somebody would just say, oh, they have a top 10 defensive rating. Well, that was just confusing me because I was looking and going, man, their defensive rating is 7th, but they're dead last in opponent's points per game. And so I hit up the film guy that I worked with on the Twitch channel that one time. He was like, yeah, defensive rating is based out of 100 possessions. The Lakers play at an extremely high pace. As a matter of fact, they still play at the fastest pace in the league, I'm pretty sure. So they're going to have more possessions. And so that throws the defensive rating out of whack. Can make it look, by that number, can make it look better than it is. But that's why I was saying when you actually watch them, you don't actually see great things going on. Even though at the time that I was saying it, they were getting a little bit better at it, getting a little bit more consistent. I was like, still, it is not a top, that's not a fucking top 10 defense. And that just irked me so much. So I had to ask, that was the answer. That's why it felt like the rating was lying, and it was. Either way, with the revolving door, like that's going on for the Hawks right now, revolving door has been going on for the Lakers, so I'm trying not to be too harsh about it. Despite that, yes, Stanley Johnson still, you need what he injects. At times, maybe being able to use him as a point of attack defender. He's not a good shooter. He's not a great shooter. He's not the one that you really want LeBron or whoever else having to kick out to. But if you can use him to spare a couple of Anthony Davis contests at the rim, because I think that's one of the things that's been getting to him this season is just how many he's had to contest. You can get a guy who can stay in front of their guy, and then just energy seems like such a cliche thing. Like what exactly is energy? But it is that energy on the defensive end, the energy for loose balls. Hopefully, if they actually sign him and weave him into this, it's the communication. I think he could be really good. Now, the last thing I heard from Vogel was they didn't actually know if they were going to keep him yet, and I will just throw my headphones that I'm wearing right now at the wall if they don't keep him, because he's coming on a 10-day, but he's clearly not just a replacement player because y'all haven't had other guys you can play. No, he can actually bring something specific and something helpful. And then when you get everybody back, now you just have that piece there, and you can throw out a lineup with him to solidify defense during certain runs. So all of a sudden, that team doesn't get a run. Maybe it doesn't get a run started. I like what Stanley can bring. That's just what I'll say there. They should keep him. If they don't, that will just be in line with last year picking Andre Drummond over, who was it at that time? Damian Jones, who could have brought what they needed at that specific moment in time. It'll be of that ilk. Let Stanley stay. Let Stanley stand for himself. That's pretty much the Lakers like basketball talk. I'm starting to notice it's a theme on this podcast. Well, really, it's over like the last 3 weeks. The Lakers take up such a big part of the talk, but that's just because, once again, every team is dealing with so much right now. So many guys in and out. It's just not interesting to really go in depth on certain squads. Looking at the Mavericks, who have been missing Luka for a good while. Porzingis has been scoring pretty decently in his absence, but Jalen Brunson has really come alive in that. And I'm starting to look. I don't think the Mavericks are going to trade him, but he's got to be drawing some trade interest, though. But even then, it's just like, damn, it's just so not as interesting as it could be. But then you go to the lightning rod, and that's why the Lakers get so much talk. And to finish out the little round here, I think the day I posted the podcast was when the Westbrook and Cat drama happened. So just to dive into that a little bit, I don't think the pass that Wolves fans were trying to give Cat on Twitter should really fly, because he was, if you're not aware, he was on Aiden Ross's stream and he basically called Russ a stat chaser. He said he chases stats. Now, as soon as he said that, you could see the chat flying, everyone just dying laughing, and he went on to clean it up, and he went full speed in reverse, because I think he realized what he said, even if he didn't mean it that way, was maybe taken out of context, but I think that's what he meant. I think he said what he thought, but he went full speed, and so that's the part that people. That's the thing. Sometimes something might be posted out of context, and then somebody will post, "Oh, here's the rest of that code." I'm like, okay, yeah, that fixes it. People posting the rest of the cat clip did not make me feel any better, because he said what he said, and he realized what he said, and then he went and gave Russ as much praise when he could have just led with that, and that could have just been that. So, slow news day, as he says, maybe, but most people took it the way Draymond took it, and that's why Draymond Green was in the comment section saying that's crazy, because you've been in games where we were up 20 in the fourth quarter. And he told him, stop talking about a brotherhood and then going on and talking about other players that you call your brother like this. So either way, that kind of led to more. I'm not sure if that had led to more talk. I actually don't know the timeline of when Westbrook's comment came out, but Westbrook made a comment and said something along the lines of, people expect him to get triple doubles, people expect him to get these crazy stats, and the reality is I'm not getting those all the time. I can't do that all the time anymore. And that's wild to me, because that reads like someone who doesn't pay attention to it doesn't really pay attention to the dialogue surrounding him, which is totally fine, by the way. I've said that before. I would absolutely Kawhi that shit. If I was as famous as them, I'd Kawhi that shit. Like, whatever. I do what I want for a living, and I have fun with it, and I make a good living off of it. Give a shit what I don't know, Bobcat's goat on Twitter said. Give a damn. I mean, I don't now, but especially if I was up there. So I'm basically just saying it lacks self-awareness, because I don't think anybody in the last how many ever years of Westbrook talk has said, oh god, or even recently has said, damn, Russ isn't playing good, he didn't get a triple double. Or damn, he didn't score, he didn't have 25, 15, and 15, he's washed. That is absolutely not the criticism of Westbrook. That wasn't the criticism of him 5 years ago. That's not the criticism of him today. And for Lakers fans, that's not what they want out of him either. It's nice if he can get that and it's organic and they win the game, but that is not what they're looking for. That's not what anybody's looking for out of him. So that was an interesting comment, albeit he has been a beneficiary of the LeBron at center lineups. He has been overall for the last how many ever weeks, last month, I would say overall, yes, he's had some bad games, he's had some bad moments. You'll see the turnover problem is still out of control. You'll see some shots, because he always tries to do that little mid-range bank shot. I think it slips sometimes, it hits the side of the backboard. You'll see that. You'll see that before you'll see some of the good things he's done. But he's done good things for the squad. I do think that he and LeBron are getting better together. And LeCenter is just such a big part of making that happen. That makes Russ's life easier. So he is. It's. I guess the disappointment, for the way I see it, with some of the fans of that team is just, hey, but also this is $44 million, so we need a little bit more. By the time the playoffs roll around, we need a little bit more than, oh yeah, he's playing well. I think that's kind of what's front and foremost on their minds. So he can improve, and it has been improving. But we'll see where it's at. The one thing, regardless of what happens, if he starts playing terrible the next couple of months, or if the Lakers never figure it out and he's a big reason, what happens, we all need to be rewriting history, I think, is the important thing. I don't pay attention to the clown shows that, Skip and them do or whatever, but every now and then they shape a lot of basketball discourse, whether it's a good thing or not. It's not a good thing. They shape a lot of basketball discourse. A lot of people pay attention to what they say. A lot of people argue about what they say. And around the time that all this is happening, that thing comes out and they start saying, it was specifically Shannon Sharp, I believe, start saying, oh, KD should have been the best player in the world, but he had to play with Westbrook. I'm apologizing to Kevin Durant here. Okay. All right. Look, I get it. He has some really bad moments, but we're not about to go rewriting history, fam. Westbrook and KD could have had a championship together when they were both in their prime. Westbrook was a better player in his prime. Yeah, he still had a lot of the flaws that he has now. That's one of the biggest flaws, is that a lot of that never got fixed. However, we're not going to act like in 2016 a big part of that failure wasn't on Kevin Durant. We're not going to act like if they hadn't been healthy in a couple of those years, they wouldn't have gotten much further. Not going to act like after 2012 we didn't expect them to go right back and play the Heat again. There was like there was a solid 5-year stretch where we thought the Thunder could have been in any finals and won it. And a lot of that was either one of those two getting injured or one of their role players getting injured. Come on now, we don't have to rewrite history. We don't have to do that. We don't have to act like Kevin Durant was there always a better fit for KD? Sure, but we don't have to act like there wasn't great opportunity with that duo. We don't have to do that. That's pretty much what I have to say there. Somehow I went from the MVP. Oh yeah, that's why, because we were talking about LeBron MVP chances. And so I went out of the award race. It's kind of meant to circle to Rookie of the Year right after that. Either way, yeah, Franz Wagner is now leading the race. I was actually surprised to see that, just given where it's been. Glad to see Only Franz getting his clout. I think, obviously, once again, revolving door, so some of the rookies go out. Kate Cunningham is out right now. I know Mobley was out, then he came back, so it is kind of just up and down. But also, Franz has just been giving himself a great case. Where you have here, like, he had like a 5 or 6 game stretch where he only had one game that he had scored under 20. And the scoring is there. That man is going to be a professional scorer. If everything tracks out right, if something actually goes correct in Orlando for once, he is going to be a professional scorer. He's got it like that. He's going to be Orlando's professional scorer, which is great, because that's the thing in the little bit of Orlando talk I've done on this podcast. You know, I'd been talking about how back then it just always seemed like the franchise never really had a direction. They just had a lot of young guys that looked like they could be nice, but they were just kind of there. This is good. I like to see it taking form like this, because if it goes this way, you could say, okay, hey, Cole Anthony and Franz in whatever order, 1 and 2. That's awesome. Which Cole is actually probably, has he been health and safety protocol? Either way, you actually start to see formation of something. Where will the Rookie of the Year race actually end? Who knows? Because for all we know, Franz will get protocoled in another week or so, and then somebody else will take it back. But it is good to see him actually get acknowledged, because I feel like in the beginning of the year he really wasn't. Mobley is still going to be pretty high up there, because he's not just offense, he is on the defensive end as well with it. I think he's near 2 blocks a game, if not over. And just, yeah, as a rim protector and being able to be mobile as a defender, as his name implies. Boy, he had a move against, was it Toronto? Somebody they played this week where he faced up and put the ball on the floor with a step back and shot it like he was fucking Kevin Durant. And I'm like, oh gosh, because he's like a retro center height. It just did something like that. It is year 1 and he's gonna get way better. That is crazy. Just don't, I'm not gonna put that out into the universe. Yeah, that is very fun race. Scotty will still be around. I think K, just because of the start he had, and now he's out, and he's in Detroit, so he'll have no type of winning behind him. I think it'll be difficult for him to get back and win it, but it's gonna still be probably like 3 or 4 people in the discussion, so that's gonna be a lot of fun. But yes, finally something nice in Orlando. I actually feel compelled to go to some Magic games, so one of these days make my way downtown with the goons. We can go a little bit to the south in Florida. Actually, nah, I'll come back to Miami. Boy, what happened in Houston last night? Oh my god, bro. Facu Campazzo had the Rockets in shambles. Not only did he have the best game of his career, you know what? I don't want to look. Okay, let's be responsible. Let me be responsible here. Kevin Porter Jr. clearly probably needs some form of help. All right. Everybody knows. If you know Kevin Porter Jr., then you know the story. He's in Houston because of what happened with the locker room incident in Cleveland. That happened, and I believe he didn't play another game there. Then he got traded. And that's when Cleveland had nothing going on. So once Kevin Porter got to Houston and we saw some of what he could do, we already knew some of what he could do, but we were like, damn, Cleveland had to just give him up for free because of some locker room issues. You can't have shit in Cleveland. Either way, you start to wonder at this point, is that going to end up getting in the way of his career? Because he left the arena last night during the game in which Facu, I don't know how to say his full name. How do you actually say? I don't even want to try. Facu Campazzo had a great game, and then he had this one move that is going to be on the assist of the year reel, and it involved Kevin Porter. Facu went behind the back once. Kevin Porter went the other way. And then Facu went behind the back again and passed it to Aaron Gordon, who finished with a reverse lay, which he should have dunked it. That'd have been even better. So obviously the joke writes itself there. But now you're looking and going, okay, second locker room incident, and this one is egregious. The last one was egregious, but this one is egregious. Leaving something to do with, was it John Lucas, coach, or one of the coaches? Locker room incident, didn't like something he said, and left at halftime. I have never in all my years, I can't say I haven't heard crazy things. I lived through the Gilbert Arena story, but leaving at half, just straight dipping from the arena, like, all right, nah, I'm out, and down to the garage, and you just out while the game is still, that I don't think I've heard anything like that. And it wasn't just him, by the way. Christian Wood would not check back into the game. So this is a Houston team that at the beginning of the year was going on a winning streak. I was starting to question what was going to happen, because for a split second, it looked like they might bring John Wall back. And I was thinking, oh man, are we going to have John Wall here? And is he actually going to make a difference? And because of the way the West is Houston actually going to make the playoffs? Then I also talked about some Christian Wood trade scenarios, and kind of seems like that's where that may go, because I hadn't really remembered that he came from Detroit, and I believe he went to Houston willingly. At very minimum, he had to say, but I'm pretty sure he went there willingly. That was at a time when they had Harden. So he didn't really pick a destination and go play to lose. Kind of got stuck in this. And he can clearly probably be at a minimum helping a contending team. I will also say, that's also a wild move, just because we just watched Kemba Walker deal with some bullshit, being completely benched, and when it was his time to come back up, he just came in and played. So Wood, while he might believe he deserves a better situation, flat out not checking into the game, I just don't think he has it like that. He's good, and I think he's got a good skill set for a big man. I don't think he has it at the level where you just be like, all right, I'm about to take control of this situation, I'm not playing. I don't know. That's a tough night, though. That's a tough night for Facu to give you a career night, and then one dude dips and the other dude says, I'm not playing anymore. Just, you remember, I hadn't said it in a while, but everything in life is optics. And so there, the story just writes itself. Nobody even thinking about poor whoever was trying to guard Jokic last night. It's the Facu night. And the double rage quit night. That's crazy. I'm waiting to see what's happening. I'm assuming one or both of them is going to get suspended, because you have to do something with that. But also, again, Kevin Porter clearly is gonna need some type of assistance. He's gonna need some type of assistance, because this becomes a pattern, and regardless of how good he can be, how many teams are going to be taking a chance on you before it's like, all right, yeah, he's talented, but we can't risk, and especially on better teams, like, we can't risk a night where things just blow up like this and he didn't want to play anymore. And there's plenty of guys trying to get those spots. So Kevin Porter's not a star. He might have a potential star skill set one day. He's not a star right now, and so he can be replaced. And I would just hate to see that happen, because even though it hadn't been a great season for him compared to what we thought might happen, I don't want to see him lose it over drama, basically. But that's a wild night, bro. That is a wild night. It was also wild when, for Miami a couple nights ago, Kyle Guy came in, and my bad. I trusted myself to remember his actual numbers. I know he hit a lot of 3-pointers, and he might have ended up with 17 points that night. Yeah, he had a career night in Houston, is what it was, and it wasn't even that long ago. Yes, Kyle Guy came in. He was on a 10-day contract, and it was 17 points on 6 of 8 shooting from the field and 4 of 6 from 3. Also dropped 4 dimes and grabbed 4 boards. I just wanted to give him a mention here because this one I actually don't remember in my G League sections of the earlier podcasts we were doing this season. I don't remember if I mentioned Kyle Guy on the Chargers, the Cleveland Chargers. I talked about Taco Fall, and Kyle had been killing it in the G League. And that one, that's a deep cut for Cleveland because the Chargers are their G League affiliate. And now Rubio went out, and I think Kyle just got snatched, like just now got snatched. And so I would have expected Cleveland. I would have expected Cleveland to maybe go. Not that Kyle Guy's going to come in and replace Rubio. Nothing that they can readily get their hands on would replace Rubio. But in that time where it's like, okay, this is just a vacancy and we need something here, thought maybe Kyle Guy could have done that. Instead, he went to the Heat, and we'll see if they end up keeping him. You don't know. Sometimes guys come in, like you said, the Lakers hadn't even committed to Stanley Johnson yet, so we'll see. But this would just be for a team in Miami that has just found somebody at every position that they needed so far. You got Omer Yurtseven, who's come in and played center for them. Fucking, like, we already went over Strus and Gabe Vincent. And I believe Gabe Vincent got protocoled. I'm not sure if he played in that game, but I think that has something to do with why Kyle Guy was there. Or was that because Kyle Lowry? I don't know. I'm losing track of the protocols and the in and outs right now. Either way, he ended up there probably due to protocols. And yeah, that's exactly what he's been doing in the G. He's been a sniper. I think he was one of the top scorers down there. So I hope he gets to stick around. And if the Heat don't keep him, I think Cleveland should watch some tape of what he was doing for their affiliate and pull him up and give him some reps, because I just don't know that Rondo is gonna. I don't know. That was such a quick move. It was like, damn, let's just fill this as fast as possible. I don't know. I'm just so sick for them that they lost Rubio. On the last of talking about, because I kind of want to, I'll get to the Warriors game, and then I'll get to that's more interesting. The Warriors beat the Jazz last night. They became the second top team in the West for the Warriors to beat without having been healthy. They did not have Draymond Green. Obviously, they didn't have Clay. That was a given. And they go and they beat the Utah Jazz in a close game. They were leading most of it. They had even gotten up by double digits. The Jazz came back. The Warriors did what they do in the fourth quarter, started hitting shots you just can't contest. Otto Porter gave you some buckets, which is always fun, because that's exactly what happened in Phoenix. And so you go, oh, hey, maybe Steph's shot isn't falling. Maybe, Wiggins had it going. That's not a good example. But okay, let's just say hypothetically, other guys' shots aren't falling. Well, now Otto Porter is giving you buckets. That's just the Warriors' experience right now. But there was a specific play where the Jazz defense collapses, gets put in rotation. Wiggins is stuck on the left corner by himself. He doesn't hesitate to pull the three. He knocks it down, which was a pretty important three. The game was that's when it was still in his back and forth space. And it's Gobert contesting the three. Now, I saw a Twitter post earlier, because I do see... Okay, that was just the ice. Ignore me. Yeah, I do see every now and then I run into on Twitter protection for Gobert, because there are people who feel like he is unfairly targeted. And I will say, if you go back and watch certain things that have happened, even in last year's playoffs, you can go look and say, okay, this is definitely not all Rudy's fault. I.e. the Terrence Mann game, where they put Gobert on Terrence Mann and basically dared him to shoot, and he just made all his shots. But specifically, like in this Wiggins instance, what'll happen sometimes is the guy who's a point of attack defender on the Jazz gets beat. That puts Gobert in a position where he's got to defend the rim, or he's got to defend the 3-point line. So do you give up an easy two? That's for sure. Or do you let somebody? Should you stay a little bit longer than you should and then try to close out to the three? So, and if you remember the Memphis play I talked about, when that had to have been a month plus ago, when Memphis was playing the Jazz, that one I still felt was just like a defensive mistake from Gobert. I think he committed too hard when he didn't have to. Either way, my point is, yes, you can give him some leeway, while also acknowledging that his feet sometimes just aren't fast enough to make the recoveries that he tries to make in those situations. And that's people's point with him for the playoffs. So yes, of course, there is an overblaming of Rudy. Maybe there's unfair criticism, but what we're not going to do is make Twitter threads of 1 or 2 plays and then of a guy getting beat and then go, yeah, see, Rudy's actually perfect and none of this is his fault, or you can't put any of this on him. The reason that people don't believe in the Jazz in the playoffs, aside from a guy like, say, Joe Ingles getting beat off the dribble, will be because that center back there that'll have to help. It's hard for him. It's really hard for him to move as quick as he needs to get out and to get a decent closeout. And you see that all the time. That's why sometimes it looks to the eye like it was a good closeout, when in reality, Buddy had an open shot. Gobert just can't get there fast enough. That's just a physical limitation. That's all it is. And he's a great rim protector and he does move really well in space. Does all these other good things, but that part that they exploit, I think they take advantage of him not being able to get to those closeouts. And they love a scheme like they tried against the Clippers and lost, when they just exclusively put him on one of those guys that he would have to close out on. Because if you look at that, Gobert was very deep in the paint on a lot of those plays because somebody would get beat. And Terrence Mann was very wide open in the corner, which was by design anyways, but he couldn't even get decent contest up most of the time. So what happened in the Warriors game last night with that Wiggins 3, that just kind of made me think about a larger picture of what has happened to him in the past and what might happen to him this year. But he's nice though. He's still having a nice season, but I don't agree with that Jazz page I saw on Twitter that said that he's better than prime Dwight Howard on both sides of the ball. Like, that was a real thing. He was not trolling. I saw that today. That was a real argument he was making, and I didn't have the energy for it. So that's Warriors and Jazz last night. You beat the Suns on Christmas. You beat the Jazz. Those are the 2 teams behind you. As long as Golden State avoids playing Memphis in the playoffs, they about to lose like 2 games on the way to the finals if they're all healthy. That's always fun. I did want to put Saddiq Bey's name on across your desk, just because I know he was interesting last season, and he's been putting together some solid games here for like the last 4 or 5 Piston games. The lineup for the Pistons was strange last night. Cade Cunningham is out. I think they've got multiple guys out. Grant is out. So you saw Hamidou Diallo, who had a great night. Saddiq Bey, Luka Garza, who had, was it a double-double? Yeah, I pay attention to him in the G quite frequently. Yeah, Luka Garza, then who the fuck else? I actually forgot those were the 3 I took note of. But anyways, yeah, he's been hitting threes as of late. Not much last night. He just ended up with 17 rebounds instead. But I had been kind of looking for him because after last season and having his name floated around, I was paying attention this year and I was like, I don't really see it. But he's been doing well lately. That's all I really have to say for you there, because he's not a guy that they would trade. Obviously, he's young, and Detroit still has a miserable win record and is one of the only teams that's not in the playoff race in the NBA right now. In the NBA, there are only 2 teams that are not in the playoff race. It's the Detroit Pistons and Orlando Magic. Every other team has a conceivable way to make the play-in. There's one other team in the West. There is one other team in the West that doesn't have a shot in hell of making it. That would be pretty much the Rockets at this point, especially because guys are leaving mid-game. Yeah, everyone else has a shot at it. So yeah, 3 teams, my bad. 3 teams that can't make the NBA playoffs. Everybody else has got a shot. It's wild here. The very last thing I would talk about before wrapping up here, just in general, the interest, if you did find something interesting, like if you're a basketball, I would not consider myself like the craziest basketball fan out there, because there's some people that just go around paying attention to shit that, I'll just be real with you, I just do not have interest in, and I'm not going to have interest in, so I'm not paying attention to it. But I do go as far as sometimes I was watching the Hawks and Bulls the other night. Oh, speaking of that, nice. In the MVP race, I left DeRozan's name all the way out of that. Oh, that's great. That's greatness. Yeah, before I get to that, actually, I'll just let it happen, actually, because I was watching the Hawks and Bulls, another game where DeRozan was basically having target practice, and I saw Shandy Brown was starting, and that took on a life of its own, because they basically put Bros high school. It wasn't his high school picture, but he was wearing a polo like it was high school picture day, and they put that up while everyone else was in a jersey. And he just played for the Lakers last week. So I was like, come on, man, y'all could have at bare minimum done a Pixar edit of a Hawks jersey on this guy. But anyways, that made me curious, huh? Well, he's fighting for a job right now. How are guys like him playing, or how are guys like him trying to play, where they have to impress somebody? And it was just fascinating because it was fascinating to watch everyone on the floor ignore him. He rebounded well that night, by the way. He rebounded well, but there were times where I felt like he had taken a rebound from Capella because he need that. And on offense, he would be on the right wing or in the corner, and Trae Young just not even at all looking for him, probably because he don't know him. Like, and then he's also doesn't really know what he can do, or he's not really part of the scheme, so he's not really looking for him. And then he did miss most of the open shots that he did get. So by the end of the third quarter, he just kind of slumped his head, like, bro, it's hard out here. But it felt like at times he was really trying to do too much. There was a break where he went, it was 2-on-1, he or 1-on-2 really, and he went straight up into the body of two, and I was like, brother, come on now, like we get it. I know I get it, job security, but I don't think that's how it happens. And it just made me curious on a larger scale of how guys who are getting these shots because of COVID will play. What type of shots will they take? How aggressive will they be? Will they be trying to get as many stats as they can? And so Shanti Brown that night of Hawks and Bulls was just an interesting study for that, because clearly the nerves were there. Clearly the decision making wasn't always that great, but also you understand it. You need as much as you can to make an impression while you're playing on this team of guys who always play together, and they're trying to win a game. So that's a little fascinating subplot of the COVID replacements that's happening right now. Just to go, before I do end, to circle back around to Demar Derozan. Demar Derozan did not come up in the MVP race when I was talking about it, because I'm so stuck on Steph, Giannis, and KD. Those just seem like the flat out best chances to me. Meanwhile, Chicago is actually first in the East, and DeRozan is just absolutely on a tear, having his best scoring season since 2017, so it's almost been 5 years now. This is fun, and it's also just got me thinking. Before we get to that, the fun part, obviously DeRozan hit 2 straight game winners, so that's just straight out of a book. And they were both hard game winners, not well-placed ones. The first one I had to have explained to me, because the Bulls did not take a timeout, and he walked into a contested one-leg pull-up, and I was just like, okay, I know there's no way. And they were down a point. If he misses that shot, they lose. So I was wondering how does something like that even come about? How do you make the decision to do that? Apparently, I missed the press conference where he said he lost track of time. So he had to throw that up and it went in. It was a Hail Mary. Okay. So whatever. I'm going to choose to believe that he walked into that and he just knew he was going to make it because he's made a deal with the devil. And then second one is against the Wizards. I turned the game off at the top of the fourth quarter, I believe, because I was interested to see how the Warriors and Jazz matched up. And I'm so mad that I did that. I could have just walked in on the Warriors and Jazz halfway through. I'm so mad, but yeah, because I missed the second game winner, which was him basically being guarded or two defenders trying to guard him. And corner 3 game, both 3-pointers for a guy that doesn't take many of them. Crazy stuff. DeMar DeRozan these days is the same as last time I talked about him. It's just the mid-range craft is just beautiful. The side steps, the spins, the way he's getting to his spots, just pulling up over outstretched hands, creating a little bit of space that doesn't really look like space to us, but it's enough space, and it's just insane. And that's next to Zach LaVine, who sometimes does the same thing. Now, the wonder that I have, because this is where people start, he's playing so well, this is where the only defense people start to have for it is, oh, he's not going to do that in the playoffs. He's got to beat some playoff allegations here, just because with Toronto, they would have great seasons. He would have good seasons, and then we would get to the playoffs and it would look real regular. I don't have the stats off the top of my head. I just do remember never actually believing in them, because I always thought they were going to get up against LeBron, or they were going to, yeah, pretty much up against LeBron. And he just wasn't going to be as good. He wasn't going to be at a superstar level. I am wondering when we get to the playoffs, what is the counter if some of these shots aren't going? Because this is hard to sustain. The shots that he's making, that he's taking and making, are shit that Kobe and Jordan would do regularly. That it just is. It's not. It's surpassed the meme of DeRozan and Jordan. They are really the same type of turnarounds. You can not superimpose. You can put them side by side. Somebody did it with the Kobe one. They're the same moves. And so obviously we know there's only been 2 guys that have ever been able to like sustain that for a career at a superstar level and then take it to the playoffs and go win with it. It really is those 2. You don't often see it. People have a lot of other things in their bags than tough contested mid-range shots or creating space, because that takes a lot of energy. And so I guess at this point I am starting to wonder when we get to the playoffs, is it gonna last? Because he's probably gonna finish the season like this, just the regular season. In the playoffs, when they start scouting and they say, okay, don't let DeRozan beat us up for mid-range, which right now, besides throwing double teams, which will be hard because the Bulls are such a well-rounded squad and have shooting that I'm not really sure how else you're going to stop it. It kind of seems like he's either just going to make it or miss it, and it's not really up to you. But that's the part I wonder. Does it stick at a level like it's happening right now? Because right now, he's just sometimes raising straight up. I'll give him credit. He doesn't take, at least from the games I watch, it doesn't seem like he takes purposefully bad shots, because there are, even again in the Wizards last night, there was one where he was clearly gearing up to take one over Denny Advia, who's a great defender this year. But Advia pretty much beat him to the spot and had his hands up, and so instead of rising and taking a tough shot, he passed out of it. So DeRozan will not just take a contested mid-range just to take it, and I do like that. But I still do wonder, these are such incredible shots that he's making. I do wonder, are we going to get to the playoffs, and is he going to be able to sustain this for as long as he needs to sustain it to beat the allegations? That's basically what I'm saying. Very long-winded way to say, is he going to beat the playoff allegations? Because this is a really, really tough, this is a really tough route. But he's elite at it so far up to this point. And I don't want to talk like DeRozan's never been good at this stuff. DeRozan mid-range has been his bread and butter. Obviously in his younger days, you see him get to the rim a ton as well. You see body bags. So DeRozan's been great at basketball before, but this is MVP level type, superstar level type stuff. That much I wouldn't say you've seen all the time, and I do at least wonder, does that stick? Is that going to be sustained? That's all I gotta say. I hope that it is, because the more chances there are for the Nets to not just run through the East with whatever loophole actually allows Kyrie to play home games, I am for it. And the Bulls so far without Kyrie have played, I think they've beaten them both times. They've played them really well both times. If they haven't beaten them both times, they played them really well. And I know they won at least one. So his team is healthy. And then what Caruso was brought to the defensive end, and hell, the Bulls' defensive activity overall has just been good. And they're first in the East. Revolving door factor there for everybody, of course. Take every seeding with a grain of salt, but still, the Bulls have been legit the entire season. And that's just what I wonder. That is just what I wonder. Is this the year? Well, either way, this is the end of the first podcast of the year. Those were the topics. If you notice, I hadn't really done the happy and unhappy thing in a while. It's just because, yeah, I explained it already. The in and out is just so wicked for every team right now. I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to pick a couple topics that I want to talk about and talk about them until things start to look at least remotely regular again. Until I'm not so deprived that I'm evaluating Sean D. Brown's aggressiveness, basically. No disrespect, I mean, this is a dream. His dream for the guy. It's just not necessarily the type of things that get me up to write 100 topics down for the week. And I am gonna have to, man, just to close it up, was DeRozan, where would I have DeRozan with the MVP? Would he actually be able to win it? Oh boy. The Bulls would have to finish first. That's the first thing. They had to finish first seed. I don't know. God, yeah, because like they're winning and he's playing great. He might have the best player on the best team argument by the time it's said and done. I just didn't even consider it when I was looking at the MVPs. I was so focused on the 5 we've been talking about. DeRozan is sneaking up there. He's not there yet, this is a really hot run. He's had a good season, but this is also a really hot run he's having too. That's pushing him up the ladder. I think last time we saw the ladder, he might have been close to top 5. I don't know if he's actually been up there yet or in it yet. So realistically, it still might be a ways off. Well, I appreciate y'all for watching or listening as usual. Just a reminder that if you are listening on Spotify, it's very easy for you to rate. So I appreciate all of you that have, and you just press that button that you're looking at when you click on my podcast, and yeah, just give it 5 stars or don't rate it. Let's be real here. Let's just be real in 2022. Hit the like button if you're on YouTube, share it, all that good stuff, and I will see y'all next week.